Hello, welcome to this channel. My name is Janet. I'm working through the King James's Bible. Today I am in the book of Chronicles part 2 and I will be reviewing chapters 12 to 15 today. So let's dive right in. Now, as we've recently learned, the Israelites are now divided. We have the north side and the south side. And chapter 12 opens in the south side with the king there, King Rohobium. Now it says he strengthened his kingdom, so he made fortified cities. But sadly, he has not obeyed God's laws. And for this very reason, in the 5th year of his reign, the king of Egypt, named Shishak, along with other allies, including Ethiopia, attack. Now they've got 1,200 chariots and 60,000 horsemen, and they come and they take over all of the fortified cities of Judah. And God is working through the king of Egypt to punish the Israelites for their disobedience. So now that they've got the fortified cities of Judah, their next city for attack is Jerusalem, and that's the hometown of King Rohobium. Now next we learn that the prophet Shemiah turns up to see King Rohobium while he's in a meeting with all of his officials about the war with Egypt. And he tells them, because God is speaking through him, that the reason they are in the mess that they're in is because they have forsaken God, and thus God has forsaken them. So on hearing this news, they all humble themselves, and they say the Lord is righteous, meaning that they are in the wrong, they're sinning, and God is right. So then Shemiah the prophet speaks to them again and says, okay, because you have humbled yourselves, I will not let the king of Egypt destroy you totally. Instead, you will become his servants. Now the king of Egypt comes into Jerusalem and he takes all of the gold in the house of the Lord. He also takes the huge gold shields that King Solomon had made. And so King Rohobium, he has 2 more shields made, but this time they're made out of bronze. Now these are used to protect the doors of the palace, and they're taken out when he enters the palace, and then they're put back into these gatekeeper places afterwards. Now because King Rohobium had humbled himself now before the Lord, he is given some deliverance. But sadly all the gold, remember King Solomon was surrounded by gold, now it's kind of gone right down to bronze. And it says here that things are good now in Judah, meaning that there are still people within the tribe that are following God's laws. And then as this chapter comes to a close, we go over the reign of King Rohobium. So we know that he strengthened Jerusalem. He made those fortified cities. He became king at age 41, and he reigned for 17 years. His mother was named Naamah, and she was an Amorite. He did evil, it says, and he did not follow God. It says the rest of the acts of Rohobium are in the book of Shema the prophet. And also we learn here that there were wars between the south and the north side of the Israelite camps for the entire reign of King Rohobium. And then we learn that he dies and he's buried in the city of David along with his forefathers. Then his son Abijah, he becomes king. And this closes chapter 12. Now as we open chapter 13, we learn that it's the 18th reign of the king on the northern side of Israel. And his name is Jeroboam, remember. So he's the king of the northern side of camp, and this is when King Abijah on the south side, he starts his reign. Now he reigns for 3 years, and we learn here there's a great battle between the 2 sides. So they come against each other. Now on the south side, the Judah side, they've got 400,000 men, but on the north side, they've got 800,000, so double. Therefore, King Abijah, he appeals to the northern people over there and he says to them, look, you guys have sinned, you've not been following the Lord, you've got these false gods, you've got 2 false calves, we've got God on our side. You know, we've been this way since the city of David, who it's like there's a covenant there with God. We have God on our side, you know, like surrender because we're going to win. We have the Lord. Now, while he's saying all of this, they're out on the battlefield, and unfortunately the whole army of the northern side has then surrounded them. They're obviously not listening, and they're just ready to fight. So seeing all of the army around them, what they do is they blow their trumpets, the Levites blow the trumpets, those priests calling for the Lord, and then they shout for the Lord to help them. And God comes to their rescue. He strikes down the northern side of the Israelite tribe, and he drives those men into the hands of the Judah army, and 500,000 men die that day. King Abijah further pursues King Jeroboam, and he then takes over the cities of Bethel, Jeshanah, and Ephraim, with all of their surrounding villages. So they are starting to build up now their estate and what they actually own. And then the end of this chapter covers the summary of King Abijah's reign. So King Jeroboam on the northern side never got power over King Abijah. Instead, we learn the Lord struck him and killed him, so he died in the end by the hands of the Lord. Now Abijah, he expanded his empire and his family. He married 14 wives, and he had 22 sons and 16 daughters. Then he dies, and we learn that his acts are in the commentaries of the prophet Iddo. And that closes chapter 13. So in chapter 14, now Abijah is dead, his son now takes over the reign, so he becomes king. And it says there is peace in the southern side of Israel for 10 years. Why? Because Asa, he does good in the eyes of the Lord. He follows his laws and commandments. He got rid of all the false gods in Judah, and he commanded that the people follow God's laws. He also built fortified cities in Judah because, they'd lost all of those to the Egyptians, so he's starting to build that up. And God has given him rest for all of these good deeds that he's doing for the Lord. Now, during this time, the Judah and Benjamin tribes are able to build up their army. So on the Judah side, we now have 300,000, and on the Benjamin side, we have 280,000. And just as they've built up this army, we learn that they are attacked by the Ethiopians, and they turn up to Marasha with 1 million men and 300 chariots. Now, this was a huge army for Asa to take on, but he goes out to meet them. He has that faith of the Lord inside, and he goes to face this army. And obviously, he calls on God for his assistance to deal with this huge, huge presence in front of him. And the Lord, as always, when you call his name, he's there for him, and he strikes down the Ethiopian army. Judah then are able to take over the cities of Gerar, and then they're able to grab a massive livestock, so they end up taking a lot of sheep and camels out of this wall. So they are building again. Things are starting to get better. We can see now that they're following God's law. And this closes chapter 14. Now in chapter 15, Asa is greeted by a prophet by the name of Azariah, and he's there giving God's message that, look, he's reminding them, look at how good things have come now to you, now that you're following my rules and laws and commandments, and look at before what happened to you. Like, look back at the past when you've fallen, things have just dropped. Now you've come back on board, things are starting to pick up again. So it's a reminder of following the Lord brings life into alignment for them all. And he's saying, stay loyal to me and I'll stay loyal to you. He's also saying, no matter how bad you sin, I will always be there for you. So it's like he's going to come back, but just keep following his guidance. Now, after King Asa hears these words, he then takes action straight away. He gathers all the people together. He gets rid of all the false idols. He then builds this altar for the Lord to worship him. And many come from the northern territory to be there because they obviously see God is on their side. It's the 3rd month of the 15th year of King Asa reigning that this all takes place. This is when a public covenant is made between the Israelites there and God. So they have a major sacrifice again. 700 bulls are sacrificed and 7,000 sheep. They make an oath with the Lord and they blow their trumpets. It's a real connection. So they're giving themselves to God and they're asking for him to bring them rest and peace. King Asa also then moves on to remove his mother, who had been worshipping the false god Asherah. She had this wooden carved god. He basically gets rid of that and he burns it, destroys it, and she's taken out of the throne. She's like the Queen Mother. She's basically taken off that stand. The only thing that wasn't removed was the high places. They still stand. But it says that King Asa stayed loyal all of his life towards God. He also brought silver and gold to the temple, so he's giving these gifts to God. And there was no war for 35 years during King Asher's reign. And that closes our final chapter for today, chapter 15. So there we have it, two very different kings. King Rohobium on the south side of the Israelite tribe really wasn't following God, and he lost his reign by the Egyptians coming in, taking his gold. He's now moved to bronze, really. It's kind of like shameful that his wealth, his abundance is starting to diminish. But King Asher, he's come in and he's following God's laws, and he's starting to overcome their enemies again and starting to build more of their cities up again and amassing a bigger army. So we're seeing the back and forth of what happens when you follow God. Things start lifting up, peace is reigning, and when they don't, wars start and things start being taken from them. So these are the chapters for today. I'll be back again tomorrow following more within the book of Chronicles 2. I hope to see you here soon as well. Take care now. Bye.